Election. No, for boss. Oh, yeah, for the boss, yeah. Well, we're not doing that.
Okay, go ahead.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Tuesday, November 7th meeting of the Comox Valley Sewage Commission. I'd like to acknowledge that we're meeting on the unceded territory of the Comox First Nation, the traditional keepers of this land. We have most of our directors here in the hall. We also have Area B Director Richard Hardy in the gallery. And Captain Oom is joining us via Zoom from CFB Comox. So welcome to all, and acknowledgement of the staff that we have here today. Thanks very much for your work in preparing for this meeting. So we shall start off with our resolution status report and a motion for receipt, please.
Second.
Moved by Kerr, seconded by Grant. Is there any discussion? All right, all those in favor? Any opposed? That is carried. And we shall move along to the Sewage Advisory Committee minutes from October 26th. A motion for receipt, please.
Second.
Moved Grant, seconded, was that Cole Hamilton? And any discussion? Maybe I'll just raise the question. There are a number of items on the oh, wait a minute. What are we dealing with here? The advisory committee minutes? Yeah, okay, no problem. We'll forget what I was just about to say. And no discussion. All those in favor? Any opposed? That's carried. And item number 2, real-time leak detection for the sewer conveyance project. A report dated November 1st. A motion for receipt, please. Moved by Cole Hamilton, seconded by Grant, and over to staff for presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And Crystal Rose, our Senior Manager of Water and Wastewater Services, will be introducing the staff report and recommendation and able to take any questions. Chris.
Thank you, James. Through the chair, good afternoon, everyone. The Lazo Hill Groundwater Protection Policy commits the CVRD to undertaking periodic acoustic leak detection, and also commits us to implementing real-time leak detection if and when the technology becomes available. This summer, CVRD staff became aware of just such a technology, which is a real-time leak detection that's system that's available for installation during construction rather than later on. So it's a kind of a best case scenario. The concept would see a proprietary cable installed just below and to either side of the pipe along the entire alignment from the Courtney pump station to the treatment plant. The cable would be connected to an interrogator unit, which is like a hardware box that would be located at the treatment plant, and it would send light down 3 separate fiber optic cables in each of those cable bundles on either side of the pipe. And then that unit would monitor for changes in how that light transmits through the fiber to pick up changes in temperature, strain, and sound immediately to either side of the pipe. That would signal the presence of a potential leak that would kind of trigger further investigation. So not only would this technology provide much quicker response time than the annual inspection, it would also provide coverage end to end, not just for the Lazo Hill section of the pipe, but it also comes along with a significantly lower life cycle cost. With an estimated payback period of about 12 years for leak detection on a pipeline that's estimated to last over 80 years. However, time is of the essence for this opportunity. Both of the components of the conveyance project have recently been awarded. Construction is expected to start early next year, and there's a significant lead time on ordering this technology. So the kind of the window of opportunity for including this during construction is kind of rapidly closing. We're completing the final stages of due diligence on our end, and we're getting close to making a final decision on whether or not this technology should be included, which has included checking with other jurisdictions and organizations that have used this technology. It does appear to be a novel use for municipal water and wastewater application. However, it's in wide use in the mining and petrochemical industries, including for condensate, which is a material quite similar to our wastewater. And the technology provider has worked extensively with other levels of government, including regional districts and the Ministry of Transportation and Infrastructure, on different technology for monitoring for earthquakes and other health parameters for infrastructure. So because of the very tight timelines, we're recommending that the Commission support inclusion of the real-time leak detection technology in the project scope at an estimated cost of $760,000, subject to the satisfactory completion of the due diligence and installation pricing from contractors. That's it for me, but happy to answer any questions.
Thanks very much, Chris. And our first question is from Director Cole Hamilton.
Yeah, thanks, Chris, and thanks, Chair. Thanks. I just wanted to know about the lifespan of the detection system. I think I read, and I think you just said that the pipe itself could last for up to 80 years. And that's obviously a very long time for a piece of electronic hardware to continue to be functional. Just what's the track history? How long has this technology been around, and how confident can we be that it could be sort of functional deep underground for 80 years?
Sure. Yeah. So the portion buried underground would be, for inert, so not even electronic in nature. It's a very robust fiber optic package. So it's 3 fiber optic cables that are individually wrapped, embedded in a gel matrix, surrounded by stainless steel kind of rods to provide it structural integrity, and then coated in a HDPE outer casing, which is the same material that our pipe will be. So the electronic components are actually above ground in the treatment plant. So that interrogator likely does not have an 80-year lifespan, but the cables in the ground are expected to last the lifespan of the pipe. So they are the large cost component is the supply and install of the cable in the ground, which is expected to last to outlive or last as long as the pipe. The interrogator, the hardware at the plant, may go through a couple life cycles, but that is a fraction of the overall proposed cost here.
Okay, thanks for clarifying. I guess, given it's an inert unit in the pipe itself, it'll make it, and it's made, you said, of the same materials, the pipe itself, the outer coating is such that it'll be equally resilient.
Yeah, once it's in place, as long as it's as long as it's installed without damage, and that's something that's monitored carefully by the construction crews. So they're regularly checking the continuity of the line to pick up on any damage or severance of that line during construction, so it could be quickly stopped, dug up, and patched. So once the system is installed, it won't be disturbed for the life of the pipe.
Okay, this seems like a very, very wise investment, and kudos to staff for identifying this option. Yes, thanks.
Thank you, Director Grant.
Yeah, thanks. I'm not sure if I missed the very first part of what you said, so I'm not sure you may have covered this, but how certain is this of where the leak is? Like, can you zero it down pretty close, or is it like somewhere between Comox and Courtney?
No, it's incredible technology. So it's able to pinpoint it to within a meter.
Okay.
Yeah. The technology is just incredible to think of it. It's able to determine the precise location by sending light in both directions, picking up on changes in length and kind of width of the glass fiber that's caused by acoustic waves, by changes in temperature, or by strain of the fiber itself.
So that could actually be a big savings rather than sending somebody out and saying, well, it's either between here and there, and then having to find it, to actually knowing exactly where it is.
Yep, exactly.
Thank you, and Director McCollum.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, this seems like, I mean, I can't really see a downside in considering this for the scope of the project. And I guess I have two questions around that. One is, how much certainty do we have around the estimated additional cost at this point? And then the other question I had was just around like where this technology is deployed, like how often, like how much certainty do we have around when there is an issue that's detected? Just thinking about the sensitivity of what the equipment is that's going into the pipe, and does that lead to more like false positives in terms of like leak detection, or is it more accurate than other methods that we could deploy?
Sure, yeah. So the first one in terms of cost certainty. So we've worked closely, Charlie and I, to kind of massage the estimate proposal coming in from the contractor, making sure we're adding in appropriate contingencies and allowances for installation. So we're pretty confident. And we've now received some of the pricing back from contractors for installation. That increases our level of confidence. So we've still got a significant contingency allocated there within that proposed budget. So yeah, we're confident from a cost perspective. And then in terms of false positives, so the interrogator system uses a kind of proprietary machine learning software, so a form of AI that establishes a baseline. So as you can imagine, over the length of the pipe and the double loop, the loop of the fiber, there's a wide variety of conditions, and so it does keep track of on a meter resolution from end to end. And then that machine learning aspects kind of establishes a baseline. Once that pipe is installed and covered, it starts to gather data on what kind of normal conditions are. And what it does is it monitors for changes to those conditions, and then it calls attention to a change. And so until that point, it's happening at the machine level. And then once it raises an alarm and says this is a change from what we've kind of recognized as a baseline, and then it gets human eyes on it. And then at that point, an assessment is made of whether this is just an anomaly that's kind of happened and gone away, or is it something that's increasing and that warrants further investigation. So, we wouldn't be going out and digging up the pipe just on the basis of an alarm. It would just get human eyes on it and a deeper assessment. Data.
Yeah, that makes good sense. And yeah, hearing about it, I do wonder if just given the cost relative to the overall cost of the project, it's pretty small increment for something that provides a lot of benefit, and whether or not this is just technology that we're see as a regular inclusion into projects like this. And yeah, so it makes good sense to me. Thanks for bringing it forward.
And I'll offer a couple of questions. Can you just clarify, do we have in the operational costs any training elements? Do we need any specialized training for somebody to monitor this system? And maybe you'd actually explain what happens. There are bell rings, or there's a screen that needs to be checked, or how that we actually discover.
Yeah, so there is an annual kind of operating cost. So there's a software package that is that's maintained on our we will have a dedicated computer next to that interrogator, and then there's a software package that helps to manage that. And so part of the package included in the cost is training our operators to kind of do the day-to-day kind of monitoring of that software. But then included in the annual cost, which is about 10K a year, is monitoring of the system from the kind of the headquarters of the company. So it's a combination of that annual cost and then some upfront training and support from our staff.
Okay, and I just wanted to clarify, we're not actually expecting there to be any leaks, but this is a safeguarding process to provide the community and ourselves with that reassurance that should there be a leak, we'll know about it right away and be able to correct it.
Absolutely, yeah. first, the first commitment in the Lazo Hill groundwater protection policy was to do everything we possibly can during design and construction of this pipe to ensure that it doesn't leak. This is just in case that fails. Yeah.
And maybe in that regard, you can comment on the public engagement that would go on around this innovation.
Sure. Yeah. So what would the last part of the recommendation on the staff report is that we'd be directed to kind of review the groundwater protection policy and bring back proposed revisions to it in light of the shift away from horizontal directional drilling and this shift from annual periodic inspection to real time. So that's something that if supported today, we will take that away and work on. And once we've brought that back through the commission, then our intention would be to communicate the updates to the groundwater protection policy to the residents of the Lazo Hill area and likely as part of a broader communication on the project as well.
Thanks for that. And it doesn't look like we have further questions or comments. So we will move on with receipts. All those in favor? Any opposed? That's carried. And the recommendation for implementation price moved by Grant, seconded by McCollum. Further comments, questions, or discussion? All those in favor? That's carried unanimously. Thanks very much. Appreciate that. And may it prove to be a good investment. All right, item number 3, and I just want to caution commission directors that you don't need to pinch yourself. You're not dreaming. This is actually really happening. What is reported in this sewer system conveyance project budget report for November 2nd regarding updates to the sewer system conveyance budget and a timeline for next steps. A motion for receipt, please. Move Grant, seconded McCollum, and over to staff.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And Charlie Gore, our Senior Manager of Capital Projects Delivery, will introduce this staff report. Over to you, Charlie.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, CAO. Yeah, so we've had a great month. It's been really fun. We have awarded, we are in the process of awarding our second of 2 contracts, and they've both come in under budget, which I think is a huge achievement for our procurement team. Karen's sitting in the back there, and the entire team that's been working on these projects. I think you're all very aware of the challenges we've been going through over the last year, and to close these out successfully has been fantastic. So you can see there that the design build contract has been awarded to Maple Nappet joint venture, and the value of that is very close to what was approved in the budget back in August 2022. Maple Rinders have done some work for CVID in the past. They built the leachate facility up at our next to our biosolids facility on our solid waste site, and Nappet Industries do a lot of our sewer work. They built the CFD pump station. They built our equalization basin out of our wastewater treatment plant. So they're very aware of our sewer system, and they're a fantastic contractor to work with. They both are. So we're really excited to have them on the board, on the team, and we actually had a kickoff meeting with them this morning. And on the design bid build, the portion through the town of Comox, we received the bids last week, and it was a very nerve-wracking day. And we received 7 or 8 bids, 7 bids on that tender, which is extremely, which is a fantastic response from the industry on that. And 4 of those 7 were extremely tight and extremely competitive. And so we have we've sent a notice of award to Wacor Holdings, who are also a really trusted local contractor. They built our Greenwood trunk line, they built our Hudson trunk line, and they've done some other big work. They did the large diameter HDPE pipe up in Campbell River just last year. And so they're very knowledgeable, they're very good, and they know exactly what they're doing for a downtown large diameter HDPE like this. And they came in with an extremely competitive price. You can see there that the total contribution for CVID on that contract is almost $10 million under what was budgeted back in 2022. So all around fantastic news on the procurement. And once that's all said and done, once we have adjusted our budgets for all the changes that have happened over the last year and a half, we're reforecasting to come in about $5 million under budget. So I think it's fantastic news, and we're excited to announce that out to the community. There is some additional detail in the staff report there about that difference between the $10 million under on contract value and the fact that we're only trending $5 million under on budget. And a couple of the things I wanted to point out there is that we're carrying almost $3 million extra contingency into the construction. It just gives us much more protection on being able to complete the project under budget. You know, there's some pretty big changes in regulations that have happened around contaminated soils and things that you may be aware of from other municipal projects. And so carrying that extra contingency that is uncommitted funds that are in our back pocket to manage changes just gives us even more chance of coming in under that reforecasted budget. We've also added some scope there. There's the real-time leak detection, and there's been some changes in how we're allocating staff costs, project management costs, like my wages, for example, and others in our team. So that money is coming out of operational budgets and going into this capital budget, which is even like a greater sign of how much we're saving here with this reforecasted budget. The last part of the staff report is just giving the Commission an update on our next steps. So we're excited to broadcast this out to the public after the meeting today, if the Commission supports that, regarding the 2 successful contractors and this reforecasted value, and also give a heads up to the community of what's to come, because we're now moving into construction. So now the real challenges start, and that construction is going to kick off in earnest in March next year. And we've got a lot of public engagement to do between now and then. So as Chris mentioned, we need to get out to the Lazo Hill neighborhood and update them on the groundwater protection and the changes in traffic through that area. When we initially did our traffic management strategy outreach to the public, we were still going tunneling through the Lazo Hill area. So we need to update that community on what construction will look like for them. And then in January, we're going to be going out to the public to show the construction plans and those traffic plans, those big ones where we're going to be showing the public when and how we're going to be implementing unidirectional traffic on Comox Road, when we're going to be building outside their houses and through the municipality of Comox, the Lazo Hill area. And so we need to put a lot of work now from receiving these contracts and the contractors' schedules and putting them into maps, putting them into a really digestible form that our community can understand what the next 2.5 years is going to look like. And so we'll be bringing that information to the December 5th Sewage Commission, and I'll do a detailed presentation then to really show you how we plan to present that information. We'll take that through our advisory in a couple of weeks to get the feedback from our municipal partners. And you know, we've got a meeting next week with City of Courtenay's traffic engineer, because try to draw on that experience from the 5th Street Bridge and really collate all that information into what we see as the best way to get this information out to the public before the construction starts. That's it. That's it for me today. Other than yeah, I appreciate your patience with us through this project. I know that the design build procurement was very tricky, and there was a lot of twists and turns, and I really appreciate the support that we had from the Commission, and feel like that was a big help in getting us where we are today. So thank you.
Thanks very much, Charlie. And I note that your appreciation of patience, Director Swift had a very particular smile on her face in response to that. She's been waiting a long time. First comment from Director Kerr.
Thanks, Chair. And Charlie, it's so nice to see you smiling. This is great. Congrats to you and your team. Just a question again, obviously about the design bid build with Comox coming in, you know, at like 2/3 of the cost. Can you help us understand why was the estimate that far off? Are they using different materials than we were expecting? Is Comox still going to see the high quality design bid build contract being done? Like, just curious why it's $10 million off. Thanks.
Yeah, so the budget that was approved for that was in August 2022, when we were in the height of the inflation nightmare in the kind of industrial world. And so estimating costs for future large diameter HDPE pipe, which is made from petrochemicals, was hugely difficult at the time. So trying to lock down pricing on that was very difficult. We were estimating that we were going to come under budget, significantly under budget on this contract leading up into this tender, but we were surprised by how competitive the market was. If you compare the rates that we achieve on this for curbs and gutters and for replacing the small diameter piping that we're going to be as we go through and replace the small diameter sewer and water lines and storm lines, they're extremely competitive rates, and it's just a sign of how big a contract this is for our local contractors. And if you imagine it from their perspective, this gives them 2.5 years of assured work for their crews. It's a massive contract to win, and that's why the 4 local contractors bid it so viciously. And it's just a real testament to the work that the town and the CVID staff to compile all that work, the roundabouts, the complete streets packages together, and realize that value of such a large contract to do it at the same time. It's when you compare the unit rates for installing manholes, installing small diameter pipe, compared to what we're receiving on other smaller jobs, it's remarkable the efficiencies and the really tight margins that we're getting from the market on this.
Thanks for that. Further questions or comments? All right. Well, Charlie, congratulations to you and your the procurement team. Thanks so much for this. As you know, it's been a year or two with a lot of obstacles in this project, and we haven't even started the hard part yet. But it's a good day to have some good news, and I know that I speak for the entire group when I say we're really, really pleased with the work that you and your team have done to bring us to this point. So thanks for that, and best of success going forward from here.
Thank you.
All in favor of receipt? Any opposed? That's carried. And we now come to item number 4, development cost charge exemptions report. February 9th report on the establishment of development cost charge bylaw, including consideration for waiving these charges and how the bylaws are updated over time. A motion for receipt, please. Moved by Grant, seconded by McCollum, and over to staff.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And Mark Rutten, our General Manager of Engineering Services, will introduce this report. And this was a report referred to the Sewage Commission by the board earlier this year. So Mark will provide that context and be available for any questions or discussion. Mark.
Great. Thanks, James. Through the CEO and through the chair, like James said, this report was provided to the board back in February. And at that meeting, the board referred the report to the Sewage Commission for their consideration of waiving DCCs for affordable housing projects. Apologies for the time that it's taken to bring this forward to the Commission. The report discusses development cost charges, the purpose of the charges, and the potential for waiving or reducing DCCs for specific eligible developments, including affordable housing options. Currently, our sewer DCC bylaw includes the waiving of DCCs for secondary suites only, and provided that they meet certain requirements for low flow fixtures. It does not include waivers for any other types of affordable housing. The sewer DCC bylaw is currently being updated. So Chris and his team are working on an update for that bylaw. They're just starting that process now. So this is a good time to consider and evaluate the potential for waivers in support of affordable housing. And this report today is provided for information only. But however, staff are looking for some direction or feedback from the Sewage Commission on how they would like to consider affordable housing in any future bylaw update. And I'm happy to answer any questions or support the discussion.
Thank you, Mark, and we'll start with Director Grant.
Yeah, thanks, Mark. I don't know if we talked about this before on this or not, but why could you not include the DCCs in the funding model? If you're building affordable housing and the province is funding or largely funding it, why couldn't we just include that in the funding? Because when we give it back to them, we then have to make that up through our taxes to other people. Whereas if it's funded directly from the province, we don't have to do that.
So I'm not exactly sure I understand the question. I'm not sure I understand where the funding would come from.
Maybe I can just jump in for you, Director Grant. The question is, why could we not require that project funding, whether it's coming from the province, federal government, or elsewhere, include the cost of the development cost charges?
So you're speaking about project funding for affordable housing projects. Correct. Presuming that it would come from higher level of government. I suppose affordable housing projects are not my forte, but I suppose the project proponent could make that request, from their funders to say, that DCC should also be included and paid for by this funding request. It's not something that the bylaw would normally consider or not.
Yeah, and a lot of these projects aren't necessarily funded 100%. So I think oftentimes we have the project proponents looking for any break that they can get on costs that come at the local level. But it may be one of those things that is worth pursuing with the province through our annual process or otherwise. And Director Grant, you might want to consider bringing a motion to the Sewage Commission along those lines at some point. Director McCollum.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. DCCs, they're such a complicated aspect of funding our infrastructure to consider. Just thinking about that the last time that this was reviewed, the change around secondary suites, and how it's my understanding that we basically charge a connection fee, or it's a fee for an additional unit. I think that's how I understand it. So if you have an empty lot and you put a house on it, you pay a DCC. If you put two houses on it, you pay 2 DCCs. Is that roughly correct?
Yes.
Do we have the ability to charge DCCs based on the size of a dwelling, based on the number of bathrooms in a dwelling? Is a small home the same as 5,000 square foot home when it comes to DCCs?
No, they can be exempt for very small units. So the Local Government Act indicates that any unit under 29 square meters is exempt from DCC. So I don't think that's something that where you can even charge them. If it's under that size, then it's exempt. But that is very small, 29.
Yeah, like a micro unit.
Yeah, but you can also select a size yourself and consider that to be affordable or somehow beneficial to the community and exempt them.
And do we have the authority to charge DCCs based on, basically, like, say we said an average home is 2,000 square feet and 2 bathrooms, and if there's a home being developed that's twice that size with 5 bathrooms, do we have the authority to charge DCCs based on a larger building, or are we limited in that there's a standard and then they can be reduced, but can we charge more?
I I think I would probably need to look into it unless Chris knows off the top of his head. I think we have some flexibility. It's a matter of laying out those requirements within the bylaw. But I think we do have some flexibility there to charge different rates for different types of housing. And it's all about the impact that it has on, in this case, the sewer system.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess that's kind of the point that I'm driving at is that, if we have a building of 1-bedroom apartments with a single bathroom, and that can really have a smaller demand on our infrastructure than a large house with a swimming pool or, but the way that we charge DCCs isn't really truly reflective of that. So, and likewise, I mean, realistically, when you put in a secondary suite, it doesn't necessarily mean that there's more demand on sewer, but there could be. And so that's the structure that we currently have, or that we most recently changed. But I'm just curious if there's other ways that communities have dealt with this. And I guess in addition to that, I'm curious whether or not waiving DCC is consider taking a more proactive approach in trying to fund affordable housing, or if it's fairly standard in communities that have been dealing with affordable housing issues for a while. And when the province is looking at doing funding partnerships with nonprofits, if it's pretty standard practice for them to see these fees waived in various communities, or if generally they are charged. So just in understanding more around what the implications are, both for us as a service provider and what that means for taxpayers, but also what that means for affordable housing projects that are happening in the community. That there's a lot of factors to weigh. So
sounds like there's about 4 questions in there.
Yeah.
Mark, do you want to respond?
Well, I think this tool is a viable tool. It is used in other communities to promote affordable housing. It is one of the abilities provided in the Local Government Act is to waive DCCs for not-for-profit rental housing, including supportive living housing, or for-profit affordable rental housing. So, I don't think it's unusual. I think it is one of the tools available to try to promote and support affordable housing. I don't have specific questions to answers to all of the rest of your questions, but we could bring back a report that further evaluates some of the different options, some of what is seen in other communities, some of what could be considered in this bylaw update that we're working on now, so that there's a bit more fulsome information provided to the commission.
yeah, no, and I'm posing those questions for further consideration when this comes back, because I realize that that's going beyond what what's covered in the report. Yeah, and then I guess just to clarify what I think the most logical approach would be to look at finding a way that could support nonprofits that are trying to build housing, and maybe looking at it a little differently when it is a fully funded project from higher level of government, like when it is just a specific BC housing project. Maybe it's not looked at the same way as trying to support, for example, the Transition Society, where their funding is received a little bit differently. And then the other question I had was just how often do we typically review the DCC policies?
Well, it depends. We always seem to be a bit behind. We like to review the bylaws every couple of years, even if that's just a minor review to just revisit the cost of projects to make sure we're on top of the latest costs. We do a major update once every 5 years. So that's about the frequency.
Okay. Yeah, so we're fairly on track then, it sounds like, in terms of timing, since
Yeah, I think the
what's
last, I'm
coming.
not sure when the last update was, but
I think it said 2019 on the report.
yeah, so we're pretty on time.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Director McCollum. And Chris, you had your light on momentarily. Did you want to weigh in, or?
I was just going to step in and help Mark a little bit. I don't have a precise answer to whether or not we are able to use other metrics for single family residential, but I do note that we use floor area for commercial and industrial, so there are other metrics, so we can, like Mark said, take that away and understand whether there is flexibility for which metrics to use for single family.
Thanks for that. And I'll just ask, in the advisory minutes, City of Courtenay staff raised the issue of rather than waiving the DCCs, actually issuing a grant that helps to cover them. And the city does that from money that's collected through a levy on new housing. Do we have that mechanism available to us within the CVRD?
No, not that I know of. We don't. And the other, potential I see with that kind of a solution is that you would have, on one hand, it provides a lot of flexibility because individual applicants could come forward and say, my project qualifies for this help. But at the same time that's an advantage, it's also, you could be inviting a lot of individual kind of applicants to come forward and say, my project somehow qualifies for this waiver.
Well, given our housing crisis, that might be a nice problem to have if you had a lot of applicants coming forward. But yeah, I appreciate what you're saying. And James, our CAO, would like to step in.
Just add to that. So the Sewage Commission doesn't have a reserve, excuse me, doesn't have a reserve that could be used in that opportunity to waive fees or to provide the coverage for the fees. The CVRD does have its housing homelessness support service, and that is a fund that does get identified for different affordable housing and supportive housing projects. It has been over the years, not something that the board has specifically put money to for DCC waivers to date. I think the report that Mark's presented here is really about building in the opportunity for either fee reduction or fee exemptions, and then ensuring that the costs are being realized, the funds are still being realized for the service. Considering those additional nonprofit construction projects.
Thanks for that. And Director Grant.
Yeah, I was just wondering, it appears that you're going to come back and give us an update on this at some point in the future. That being the case, I'm not sure that I need to make a motion, but just to ask that you would look into whether senior government could include DCCs in any funding provided for affordable housing.
And actually, I think it might not hurt to have a motion from the Sewage Commission. Just to be clear, the staff report does talk about a couple of different options. And because of the review that is going on right now, it would be helpful to have that instruction from the commission to, we can come back to the commission to present a bit more information to some of the questions that have been raised here, and then get some really clear instruction into the review process.
Okay, I'll make a motion.
If you can just hold that for a moment, because we will dispense with receipt, but I just want to double check first whether there's any other specifics that commission members would like to see included in the report. Director McCollum.
It may be helpful to have maybe some retrospective numbers, like looking at, had we been waiving DCCs for, say, the last 4 years, what the impact would have been on the reserves and what the adjustment would need to be in terms of DCCs in order to recoup those costs, just for better context.
Can I just provide a response for that? And maybe the commission already understands this, but just for clarity, if DCCs were waived for a certain type of housing, the formula within the bylaw or within the study that supports the bylaw would shift those costs towards the rest of development that's happening. So it should have, in theory, it should have no impact on the total reserves collected, the total amount of money that should be collected by DCCs, but it would shift some of the responsibility from that category that you're exempting towards the normal construction category.
Perhaps that means the impact would be on the cost of that other development.
Correct.
Yes. Director Kerr.
Yeah, I guess just what I'd be interested to know is other jurisdictions that have done something similar, has it actually had the intended effect? Or were there other unintended consequences. So did it actually get more affordable housing units built? And if so, how quickly? And were there any issues that arose in the community that were unintended consequences?
Okay, thanks for that. And it looks like those are all the comments for now. So thanks very much, Mark, and we'll deal with the receipt of this item. All those in favor? Any opposed? That's carried. And Director Grant, if you'd like to propose your motion.
Sure, I would move that we ask senior government to include DCCs in any funding provided for affordable housing.
All right, perhaps we'll take a separate motion after this, asking that the report cover a couple of these items that have been mentioned. Any discussion on that motion? And it's basically that the Sewage Commission requests senior government to consider the provision of DCC costs in their grants for affordable housing. Director Grant.
Can we assume that water will be covered in this as well, since we're going to do that next?
You might need to make a separate motion at that table. I do see that Director Hardy would like to contribute, and Director Hardy has the opportunity to have voice at these meetings. So if you'd like to come up and take a microphone, please.
Thanks very much. In consideration of the motion that's been put forward, and just wonder if there's a concern with regards to how we word or put that language in there with regards to senior government, including their costs of the DCC into whatever grant that gets permitted. If that, and going along with Dr. Kerr's comments in regards to understanding other models where maybe there was an increase in housing because of the decrease of DC funds. My concern, I guess, at the end of the day is if we incorporate language that says that any federal grants that the DCC costs will come out of that grant, does that decrease housing moving forward? And I guess that's a concern that I have, and maybe it's just me, but I could see very well Canada or BC saying, here's $5 billion to go and deal with affordable housing. And in that, you need to figure out the DCC costs, which consequently, will it end up having 2 or 3 or maybe 10 affordable housing units not going in because the DCC costs were included in that. So I'm just wondering if we've thought about that in regards to the motion that's being put forward. Thank you.
Yeah, fair point. Thanks for that. I think that any request that goes to senior government basically opens up a line of discussion where these sorts of possibilities can be explored. But obviously, we wouldn't want a side effect to be that there's fewer houses being built because they're having to come up with extra dollars for these costs. Director Grant.
Yeah, I did think about that. And I think that when you don't collect DCCs from one group, it either goes on to everybody else who makes the housing go higher, or we pay it at the town. So at some point in time, that money gets paid to somebody. And what we find is that we have projects coming through, and our one on Balmoral in particular, where about 3/4 of the way through, they go, holy crap, we got to pay DCCs. We don't have any money. Well, that's not a good way to do it. And so I think this alleviates all of that. And there's no free money here. Somebody ends up paying that at the end anyway. So, I don't have a big fear that you're going to get fewer projects. I just think you're going to get, especially in a time now where the provincial and federal governments are really pushing us to build more and more and more. I think they have to step up to the plate on their side too.
Okay, and any further comment on this particular motion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? That's carried. And I'm wondering if the commission would like to, somebody would like to move that a future development cost charges report include the experience of other jurisdictions and the impact on private sector housing costs of the waiver of DCCs for social housing projects. Moved by Director Kerr, seconded by Director Cole Hamilton. Any discussion? All those in favor? Any opposed? That is carried. And that brings us to the, thanks very much, Mark and staff. That brings us to the end of our agenda for today. So thanks very much to everyone for your engagement. Thanks to staff for all the work that's going on in relation to our major projects and these other issues. And we'll take a motion for adjournment. Moved by Grant, second by McCollum, all in favor, carried. Thank you.